You know, our mission is that everyone can belong anywhere. And we've done the anywhere part, but Airbnb is still, for some, an alternative way of traveling. Until today. Today, we will show you Airbnb is for everyone. We have the perfect home for every guest. You just can't find it. So we are introducing new categories. But how would you find not just the perfect home for you, but the right home for the right type of trip? Airbnb collections. Many of our hosts are going above and beyond even the Superhost standard. I'm excited to announce Airbnb Plus. All the comforts of home plus more. Every single one of these homes are verified for quality. But what if we even went beyond? So today, we showed you 5 things, and when you put these 5 things together, we finally do have a home for everyone. Our hosts have been leading the way, and in the process, redefine what it means to be home. Thank you. How are you doing? Thank you for coming today. How's everyone doing? Good, good. Well, yeah, so as we just showed just now, we had some really amazing things announced. So again, I'm Brian Chesky, CEO, co-founder, also head of community. And again, the reason I actually, last year, I added title head of community because I was thinking a CEO is usually somebody who runs a company. But at the end of the day, as much as we are a company, we're also a community. And so it became very clear that the person running Airbnb should also think of themselves as leading a community. And I think part of leading a community is listening to a community and making sure that they can ask questions, we can be there for them, and hence we're going to be doing this every 3 months or so long as you find it useful. And if you don't find it useful, we of course won't do it. But so we're really excited about what we're going to do today. Every one of these, we try to have somebody host it. And so I'm not the host. I'm going to answer some of the questions. And instead of a person this time being an Airbnb employee, we thought, why not have it be a Airbnb host? And so I'm really pleased to announce our moderator is a host from London named Rebecca. Rebecca, come on in.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hey, thank you for hosting today.
Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me over here.
And how was the trip over to San Francisco?
It's been great. I've been here for a couple of days. I've got some family here, so I've been staying with my cousin and his wife and his twin girls that have been waking me up very early in the morning. So hello to them. I think they're watching
early
now.
Morning.
I did. I sensibly booked into an Airbnb myself last night to get a good night's sleep. So I've been staying just up one of those really steep streets. So a very iconic view of San Francisco as I walk down here today. It's beautiful.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you for coming. And and how long have you been a host for?
3.5 years now. So I live in the London borough of Hackney, and I host with my 2 young sons, Isaac and Saul, who are watching now, I'm sure. And we Airbnb the spare room in our 3-bed Victorian terrace. I like to describe it as a spacious loft with ensuite bathroom and cats. And they are.
Cats?
I've got 2 cats. They're called Mushroom and Garlic. And to be honest, they're what attracts most of my guests. So no, that's great. So I've been a super host for most of that time now. And I've also helped the London team launch a Hackney home share group. So it's a kind of support network for other home sharers like myself. So I think a lot of them are watching back in London now. So hi to them.
Well, welcome and thank you for hosting today. I'll hand it over
My
to you.
pleasure. Thank you very much. Yes, you've flown me here to ask some questions, haven't you? So I'd better start on that. So before we do, there was that wonderful video at the start, very much an overview of the announcements that you made this week. Lots of great innovation there. Is there anything that you want to add to and share with hosts now?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is, I think there's a slide here. I'll just to recap. There were 5 basic things that we announced. The first is an update to our Superhost program. So you're a Superhost. Sounds like you've been a Superhost for a few years now. Superhosts are our most iconic hosts. Many of you watching are Superhosts. We have 400,000 of them in almost every country in the world. And one of the thoughts we had was Superhost historically was a badge, and it had a few benefits. But we want to turn something that was a badge into an entire program of benefits. And so what we've announced are, and we'll talk about this a little more later, are 14 new benefits for a total of 19. And I think the idea is that this program becomes a way to support your lifestyle as a host. And we really want to make sure that our very best hosts are recognized, taken care of. Many of the benefits we came up with were things we heard directly from the host community. The next thing is Super Guest. We don't have a lot of details, but we thought if you're going to have a Superhost program, you should have a Super Guest program. And so we're going to be launching something later this summer with Super Guest. The next is new categories and collections. Really, the idea here is to match every guest to the perfect host and the perfect home for them. Next, we were introduced to Airbnb Plus. I'm really excited. I think some of the top questions are about Airbnb Plus, so I will talk about those. And finally, Beyond by Airbnb, which is coming later this year. So these 5 things, at the highest level, are trying to accomplish one macro idea, which is that Airbnb should be for everyone. And so we want to make sure all hosts belong. Our mission is that everyone should be able to belong anywhere. I think we've done the anywhere part. Hopefully, some of these updates, we can also do the everyone part.
Brilliant. So before we get started on the questions, just to let you know that across the world, the millions of hosts have put forward 3,000 questions. We obviously don't have time to answer every single one of those.
We'll only do 2,000.
So what's happened is people have been upvoting the ones that they feel most strongly about, and I think we've grouped them into 2 key sections. The first half, or the first portion, we're going to ask questions about the announcements this week, and then there are some other broader questions that hosts have had, and we'll cover those off at the end.
Excellent.
Cool. So if you're ready, I shall start with question 1.
Yeah.
And this is very much of interest to me and the 400,000 other Superhosts out there. What are the benefits of the Superhost program? Can you give us more details, please?
Absolutely. And what I should also clarify is that for some of these questions, including this one, I will give the high-level answer, but I'm going to ask members of the team who actually led the projects go into more of the details. So, and I said this before, but Superhost, the history of Superhost is actually in 2000, maybe 10, I can't remember the year, we had an original idea of a Superhost program. And we basically were nominating kind of just the founders host on a kind of unstructured basis that we thought were going above and beyond. In around 2013, we announced at the very first Airbnb Open, the one that wasn't even an event, that we really wanted to recognize our very best guests, our very best hosts. And so in 2014, we announced this program called Superhost. And it really was built around a badge. The reason why was the number one thing that hosts told us is they cared deeply about being promoted to make sure they had a lot of visibility. But as we started thinking about it, we thought, well, number one, we can probably do more to promote Superhost. But the other thing we thought is that, we want hosting to be able to be kind of a lifestyle. If you want it to be a career, it should be able to be a career. And so we started asking hosts, many of you, and we got thousands of responses. And the responses were things that could make hosting better or more easier, more enriching. And so we looked across these axes, and we've come up with more than a dozen benefits just this year that I'm really excited about. I think we're going to have Clara from our team talk a little more about the details of the benefits. The last thing I'll say before I hand over to Clara is that I hope this is just the beginning. I hope every year we have another list of benefits. So maybe Clara, can we maybe talk about some of the benefits?
I work on the host team here at Airbnb. We're super excited to announce these new Superhost benefits. These are really, as Brian mentioned, inspired by you, from talking with you on all the ways we could do better to support, to recognize, and to reward you for being amazing hosts on Airbnb. So we introduced 14 new and updated benefits. These are things we are planning to do across an entire year. So throughout all of 2018, we'll be rolling out additional benefits every month. So you'll see here we have the 5 benefits today. You should recognize most of these. We give you a filter so you can find Superhosts in search. You have the profile badge, of course, access to products, the travel voucher after a year of Superhost and priority support. On the next slide, you can actually see here, throughout the entire year on a quarterly basis, we have new benefits planned. There have been a couple of questions that folks have asked, so I'll maybe respond to those directly. The question around what increased marketing is, Brian actually showed during the keynote, and you should be able to see on your listing page today, when you're actually viewing your listing of a Superhost, we have a special call out that describes what Superhosts are. Superhosts are highly rated hosts that provide great experiences, and it's very clear to guests that this is the benefit of staying with a Superhost. We also have on the homepage, Airbnb.com, a carousel that features our hosts. It says, stay with a Superhost. They're known for great stays, and we're helping to highlight to guests why they should stay with you. And we'll continue to find new ways to make sure guests really understand what Superhost stand for, that you're highly rated, that you provide great experiences, and you're very experienced. The second is around increased access to be able to test new products. We'll give you a few examples of things we're rolling out soon. So soon our Superhosts will be able to test aligning photos. So of all the photos you've uploaded, being able to tell our guests which photos belong in which room. This is borrowing from the lead of Plus that we'll talk a little bit about more earlier. That's a feature we'll hope to bring out to Superhosts. There was a question about custom URLs. That is coming this fall, and so stay tuned for more details. There's a slide that says airbnb.com/superhost, but also in your email, in our host newsletter, and in the host dashboard. We'll keep you updated as details are available. So lots of benefits. This is just the beginning, as Brian mentioned. This will get better every year, and we really want to make sure our Superhosts feel completely recognized and that we're offering a world of benefits to support and recognize you.
Sounds great. Thanks very much, Clara. Excited about all of those. So here's a question for all of the other people out there, all of the other hosts. Is it harder to become a Superhost now?
So yeah, this is a very common question that we got. First of all, the general principle here is that we want more Superhosts, not fewer Superhosts. So we have 400,000 Superhosts today. I'd love for us to get to 1 million or more Superhosts. Most of the criteria didn't change. One of the criteria did change, and that is that we shifted from 80% 5-star to a 4.8 rating. This makes it a little bit harder. Not a lot harder, but it does make it a little bit harder. Let me first talk about why we made the change. The number one feedback, one of the top pieces of feedback we got from guests is that they weren't clear what it meant to be a Superhost. And so we wanted people to really understand what a Superhost is. And a Superhost is a highly rated host. And we explained to people 80% 5-star, it was a little hard to grok, a little hard to understand. But everyone understands a 5-point review system, and they really understood what a 4.8 rating was. 80% 5-star is similar to a 4.8 rating. So we shifted from 80% 5-star to a 4.8 or above rating. It's pretty equivalent. It also allowed us to have a consistent review rating between Superhost and the collection standards and getting into Airbnb Plus, which means that to become a work collection, a family collection, or Airbnb Plus host, you also have to have a 4.8. So we want to be able to have consistent 4.8 standards that guests can really understand at a high level. Maybe, Clara, we could go through. And I also wonder, do you want to come up here and talk? Because I don't know if the camera's on you. Sorry. I'm noticing that you're, yeah.
All right.
Maybe, why don't you come right here?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. No, it's nice to be able to see all of you from the front. So to build on, I think, what Brian was just saying, yes, it is just a little bit harder to qualify. Part of the reason is when you're in a world of 80% 5-star, a 1-star review, a 2-star review, and a 4-star review are kind of the same. They're just not 5-star reviews. In the new world, a 1-star review does bring your average down a little bit more, and we absolutely recognize that. I want to make sure that we're clear with our hosts. We want to make sure that our system is fair for you, that we're continuing to review how we're actually looking at reviews. And the new criteria that we announce, we're actually not using it until the July Superhost assessment. So the assessment that's coming this April will not change. It's still on the 80% 5-star. If you actually see in your host dashboard, we show you the current system, which is your percentage 5-star review versus the target. And then we also have added on top of that an overall rating where you can see where you are relative to the 4.8 requirement. In the next 4.5 months, we're going to be working with you to understand how our hosts are doing and to make sure this program stays really fair to you. So you should be able to see in your dashboard exactly how you're doing, and we're going to continue to support you in this process. Based on our data, just looking over the last year, we expect between 90 and 95% of our superhosts are going to have no problem qualifying again. Most superhosts are around a 4.85 rating today anyway. So our superhosts are amazing. Small change for consistency and clarity to make it easier for our guests and hosts to understand how to qualify.
Well, thank you, Clara. And one thing that I wanted to just call out is we also want to be very thoughtful about, we know that, one of the things we have is a commitment that hosts don't cancel. We also know life happens, extraordinary events occur. There's also concerns about, well, what if a guest is just leaving a review that's unfair? So we want to make sure that though the standards are going to continue to be high, that we really are very thoughtful about extenuating circumstances. And so Clara, myself, and the team are looking at a variety of ways to make sure that we take all considerations into account. And so we're going to continue to evolve these standards based on what we find is working and not working. And we want to keep getting your feedback. If you tell us, it's not working, let us know, and these things can continue to get tweaked.
Brilliant. Thanks for that reassurance there, Brian and Clara, as well. On to question 3. What's the difference between Airbnb Plus and Superhost?
So very, very good question. One of the top questions. Superhost at the highest level recognizes great hosts on Airbnb, people that are providing great hospitality, they're offering great value, a commitment to accuracy, communication. Airbnb Plus is all of that, plus an in-person inspection where you verify quality and comfort for over 100 points inside the home. So they really both have an intersection of our very best hosts. 75% of Airbnb Plus hosts are Superhosts. So it's really the same standards for the most part, very similar standards as Superhost, plus the 100-point in-person inspection. Now, because this is such a new program, many of you have seen the keynote, but I wanted to make sure, because we have thousands of people watching online, that we just recap some of the basics of the program. And so the person leading Airbnb Plus is a woman named Amber. I'm going to ask her to come up right now and maybe go through some of the high-level details of Plus, and we can hopefully be able to showcase the differences. So Amber, why don't you come in?
Hi, everyone. How are you? Yeah, so as Brian mentioned, I just want to do a quick recap of Airbnb Plus. So, as you mentioned, this program is about beautiful homes, exceptional hosts, and hospitality, all verified for quality. And what we mean about that, let's start with beautiful homes. This has a few different criteria within it. One is a reflection in the home of the host personality. Now, this is something that's very special to Airbnb. We want to make sure that we're elevating that and enhancing your own personal style within the home. The second is thoughtful design. And what we mean by that, there's a few pieces to that, but I can call out that that's something like making sure that it's easy to get around in the space, that it's uncluttered for guests. And thirdly, cohesive interiors. Now, this doesn't mean that your furniture needs to match everywhere, but this means that there's a nice story to your space so that guests understand what you're trying to say. So let's take a look at some of these beautiful homes. Here's Eve's. It's in San Francisco. He has a private room. Eve's has really great hospitality. He offers kombucha to his guests. He also has electric bikes that they can take around the city. And he speaks both French and Spanish, so he really likes to bring in international travelers. The next here is Belinda. She has a wonderful private room in Cape Town. She was working in humanitarian service for 15 years, and she hosts so that she can keep her home. Here's another example of Manuela in London, where she has a houseboat, and she and her husband actually live just down the moor in their own houseboat, and they love gardening and DIY and love talking to their travelers about their passions. And yet another one here, Joanne in Los Angeles. So you can just see the breadth and variety of the types of homes and the styles that are coming through with Airbnb Plus. The next piece of this is the exceptional host piece. This is the hospitality piece and some of the standards that are part of the criteria for being in the program. As Brian mentioned earlier, we're looking for some consistency in the review rating from guests. So that is a 4.8 to get into the program. There's a 95% acceptance rate. And lastly, no cancellations within the last year. Here's an example of a host, Katrina in Austin, that is giving exceptional hospitality to her guests. She's an interior designer, and she started hosting so that she could actually fund her interior design company. Every single room in her home, let's take a look at this. Every single room in her home is designed by her, and she goes the extra mile for her guests. She puts individual scents into the rooms for every guest when they come to stay. So that's an example of what we mean by exceptional hospitality. Now, lastly, verified for quality. We have 100 points of inspection that we send someone to the homes and does an in-person walkthrough. Some of the things that we're looking for is cleanliness, comfortable, and what we mean by comfortable are things like fluffy towels, sheets, and then lastly, thoughtfully designed. I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but these are like the personal touches that you're doing as a host for your guests. So let's take a look at what that means in terms of the benefits that you get as a host. You're getting top placement within the product. There are very specific areas where guests can actually see Airbnb Plus listings, and it's a premium placement, so you're getting a lot of visibility. In-home services, so a part of the program is there's professional photography. We have a design consultation team to kind of help with understanding the personal touches and thoughtful design. And lastly, premium support. We have a dedicated Airbnb Plus team that is there and trained specifically in the Plus program to quickly respond to any questions. So I want to actually show you a little bit of what this looks like. So let's take a look. So here you're seeing actually Airbnb Plus is being promoted directly from the initial experience within the app. Once you go in, let's take a look at Los Angeles. Every single city and destination that we're in, we're currently in 13, has a specific landing page just for Airbnb Plus listings. So this is part of that priority placement that I was speaking to. And let's dive in. All right. Here you can see too that whenever there is a Plus listing, we're actually calling it out with a special badge, and it's saying verified as well. This is something that we heard from our travelers was really important to see, is calling out that there is something different, that you've actually gone through this process and done the work to be part of the program. Okay, so now let's take a look at Los Angeles. Again, this is what I was speaking to in terms of priority placement. This is the destination of Los Angeles where you're only seeing Plus listings. And as we go in, let's take a look at this one here. Again, you can see the badge. And now we have a brand new designed listing page. There's some really excellent features here, where there's a brand new photo tour for every single listing. And what you can see here is how the professional photography is being showcased in a new way. It's done by every single room. So there's the living room and the kitchen, so that it's really easy for travelers to understand the space. And there's places for you to call out the special details about the home and like what makes it special to you. And as we continue down the listing, you'll see things like calling out the amenities that are part of the home. Now, what we like to do is call out not only the amenities that are special and unique to every single listing, but we also want to call out the amenities that come with the Airbnb Plus program, because these are some of the things that we've heard in feedback from travelers are really important to them, that there are certain standards that are coming with the program and that are part of the criteria to be part of Airbnb Plus. And there you have it. That is an overview of Airbnb Plus, and that is live today in 13 markets. Actually, there's one more piece here. This is what how we can also showcase a variety of different types of listings all around the world. We've built out these different promotional areas where we can feature and showcase really different special parts of different listings around the world. You're seeing here endless views. So different Plus listings that have really great like balconies and views all over the world. So this is just another area that travelers can see what's unique and special about these homes. And here you can see an example if you dive in what that looks like. Okay, that's Airbnb Plus, all the comforts of home plus more.
Oh, thank you, Amber. And maybe I could just share a couple more thoughts. Number one, really excited. We worked on this product for quite a long time. The spirit of Plus is that we want, just about every host, if they want to find a path to Plus, to be able to join Plus. And so over the coming year, we're also going to be coming out with more and more tools and resources to make it easier to become a Plus host. But, there are many, many ways to be able to be featured without being a Plus host. Number one, again, going back to Superhost, we want to make sure that if you're a Superhost, we can highlight your home. And so we're going to try to make sure that more and more guests understand what a Superhost is, that you're a Superhost. Additionally, in addition to Airbnb Plus, categories and collections should add really a plethora of ways for you to be able to highlight yourself. We're going to talk about collections in a second, but I think that joining collections and also really hiding what's unique about your home via categorization should really make sure that every single host, what makes their home unique, stands out for guests. So this is really the spirit of where we're going.
Brilliant. That sounds amazing. I want to know, how do I qualify? When's it launching in London and other cities?
It's going to be, Well, London, it's already in, and it's in 13 cities. And I guess that's the next question. So do you want to maybe share a few more? And Amber, you maybe stay down here. While she's coming, I'll say that right now it's in 13 cities, but our goal is to make sure that Airbnb Plus is in hundreds of cities, and really one day thousands of cities. And so maybe Amber, you can talk a little bit about how hosts can qualify.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. So yes, as Brian said, first of all, we want Airbnb Plus to come to you. We are working as quickly as possible to get Airbnb Plus in every city around the world. What we announced on Thursday, we're in 13 markets currently right now. By the end of summer, we're going to be in 25, and by the end of the year, we're going to be in over 50 markets. And by next year, we want to be in hundreds. So we're just working as quickly as possible to get to every single city and every single market, because that is our vision and that is our goal. In terms of qualifications to get into the program, as I just went through, there are qualifications on the hospitality standards, as well as the 100 points of criteria in the home, so that it's meeting, the excellent conditions that travelers are looking for. There are currently also some requirements around the category. We started with private rooms with private bathrooms and entire homes, but we're looking to continually expand that into more categories and more ways as we start to continue to evolve the program. There have been some questions around price. There are no requirements for nightly price to get into the Plus program. We currently have listings that are below $50 a night, and then it goes upward of $250 plus. And we want to continue to offer that wide range to all of our travelers. So that is currently not a requirement that we have. And in terms of looking at new hosts and hosts that may need a little bit more investment to get into the program, we want to make sure that we're starting to roll out different types of other features that can help and support in that process. So we're looking at things like host loans or partnerships with other brands that can help with supplying and discounting to the types of amenities and products that may be needed to get into the program.
And Megan, maybe you want to just stay here. Awesome. Well, I think this is the next question for you. So
it does sound like it is, yeah. So this was an upvoted question. Why is there a fee to apply to Plus? And what happens if we fail inspection?
Here we go. So, first of all, the one time application fee, which is $149, is just one portion of the entire program of Airbnb Plus. The rest of the program, the process that we're working on with you, is a co investment. We have professional photography that we are providing with the program. We also have the design consultation services that I mentioned. We also have editorial copywriting. So, that is just one piece of the entire investment process where we're investing in you and you're investing in us. In terms of what happens if we fail inspection, this is not a pass-fail scenario. Once you are eligible and you get into the program, you go through the in-home walkthrough, and then there are potentially fixes that need to be made. And then we're giving support all along the way. We provide a very detailed checklist of those fixes. We provide access to be able to message the Airbnb Plus team so that if you have any questions, you can respond. And again, I mentioned the design consultation team. So if there's any questions around the thoughtful design or the personal touches, we're there for you every step of the way. And then lastly, we want to make payments really easy. Once you schedule an inspection, the payment will be taken out of your next booking. But in April, we're also going to be rolling out payments via credit card.
All right, thank you, Amber.
Thanks very much. So on to the next question, if you're ready. How do I make sure my listing is categorized correctly? Can we suggest categories?
So this is a really great question. Maybe what I'll do to start is just to recap what categories are and what collections are. And I'm going to start by going through collections. So here we have Airbnb collections. Now, the reason we came up with Airbnb collections is we surveyed thousands of guests. And one of the things that became very clear is that even if we categorize the home to say, well, this home is a beautiful boathouse, this is a Victorian design, there's really common reasons why people travel. We want to make sure the most common reasons people travel, that with the click of a button, they could discover homes that met their criteria. Now, these are 9 of the most common reasons people travel on Airbnb. And so collections are really matching guests to the perfect home for their trip type or their trip occasion. So if you're traveling with your family, we want to make sure that we have great family homes. If you're traveling for work, we want to make sure you have great work homes. And we also did some other ones that are, really covering a wide variety of our use cases. So social stays. We have social stays here. This is part of the roots of Airbnb. The very first weekend was essentially a social stay. A social stay is essentially hosting, I want to hang out with the guest, and so I'm going to be available. So I'll have the meal. I'll show them around the city. Group getaways are a very common use case. Accessibility is incredibly important. Honeymoons. Now, what all these collections have in common is they all need to be a 4.8 rating or higher, but we also want to make sure they have specific amenities and services. And one of the really cool things about collections is over time, once people stay in these homes, we can eventually have family reviews or social stay reviews. So if I'm a family, I stay in an Airbnb home for a family use case, I can leave a review, and I can say I stay there for family. And so other families can see what their ratings have been by trip occasion or use case. Now, categories are really organizing our homes. And we started with 7 categories. We had shared rooms, private rooms, and entire homes. Those are the first 3 that you'll remember. And we started realizing, well, we have 4.5 million homes and places to stay. They don't really get fully captured by these three denominations. And so we added 4 more. And so we had vacation homes, which are essentially dedicated rentals, bed and breakfast. I like to think of, for hundreds of years before Airbnb, there were bed and breakfasts, many in England, boutiques, and then unique. And unique could include tree houses, castles, boats, and many other unique types of listings. So we first are building some tools so you can better categorize your home, but we can get much more specific than just those 7 buckets. We are eventually going to have hundreds or even thousands of different criteria. So let's take your home. Like what kind of home do you live in?
I live in a Victorian terraced house.
Okay, Victorian terrace house. So one category would be house. The other would be architectural style, and the architectural style would be Victorian. And the other category could be that you have a feature called a terrace. And so right now we want to make sure that if you're in London, like we want to make sure that your home stands out. And so the problem is that we don't want every home to seem the same. They're actually very different. What's the most special thing about your home?
I live on the square where the EastEnders pilot was filmed.
There you go. So a fun fact about the home we want to be able to showcase, and then maybe homes that were where movie locations took place could be a future list that we could highlight. So every home isn't just a space. It has a story. It's got unique characteristics. It's got special features and magic. And it's so important that what makes your home so unique and what makes you so unique is visible to millions of people. And the worst thing we can do is just continue to present you in a list where you can't be discerned with every single other person. And so all these changes that we're trying to do are all about highlighting what's so unique about you and your home. So this is essentially what we're trying to do. And I think if you have feedback, I know that you can obviously send this to us. Anything else I should share? Or I think that's good.
Sounds really exciting to me. Thank you very much. So on to the next question. How do you determine who's included in a collection? Can I be part of multiple collections?
So the first question is you can be in part of multiple collections. Conceivably, you could potentially be involved in all 9 collections. You certainly could be involved in many of them. So if you're in a work collection, you could also be in a family collection. And to be very, very clear, if you're in a collection, it doesn't mean you're only featured in a collection. It also means you're still featured as before. So if you're in a collection, you'll get featured more than today because you'll get featured all the ways you're featured today, plus the other inputs for that collection. So they're not mutually exclusive. Now, all the collections will require a 4.8 rating. Each collection will have some requirements. Some you already meet just by offering. So family, you didn't have to say I want to be in the family collection. If you had an entire home, with if you had a full kitchen, if you had Wi-Fi and TV, and you had a 4.8 rating, I think this is. I'll go to the next one. Then. In the house rules are suitable to children and infants, then you are automatically added into the family collection. For other collections, like social stays, we're going to actually ask you, will you be available to hang out with the guest? Would you have a meal? Would you show them the city? Would you give them a personal welcome? And so some of the collections, we're going to ask you to attest to certain things, in particular social stays. Maybe for honeymoon, there will be some amenities we might want you to add. Others, like family and work, you're just automatically qualified for if you meet the requirements. Every single one will have unique criteria. So this is the criteria for family. I think we just went through these. And then this is work. So you can see, again, a 4.8 rating. But this case is very different family. You have to have a cancellation policy that's flexible because this is extremely important for business travelers. Self-check-in because business travelers often show up late at night. And you have to be a place where you can count on to be able to get to your meetings. So you need an iron, hanger, shampoo, hair dryer, no fussing around. And make sure you can work. So you have Wi-Fi and a laptop. And so I just want to distinguish this from the family collection, where additional thing we have here is 5-star reviews from families. So again, eventually we're going to know more and more about which type of guests stay in your home. And we're going to be able to highlight not just your review score, but your review score by trip type, which I think is a pretty cool idea. And so these are on your dashboard. If you look at progress, I think we're going to be showing how you stack up against the amenities. And so we're going to basically be showing you, here's what you need. And so in this dashboard, you'll notice the example is you're just close enough to having the 4.8 rating, but you also have to add one more family amenity. You have to update your house rules, and you would need to have a couple extra reviews by family. So we want to make sure for each collection we roll out, we always give you the step-by-step to be able to get there. So that's basically how it's going to work.
That sounds really great, and it's really clear. Thank you for that. This is a good question. I think as anyone who shares their home has probably thought about this one. Can Airbnb separate personal home listings from professionally managed listings?
This is a very common request, and the answer is yes. Before I go into detail, I just want to clarify one thing, or two things. The first thing is that we want Airbnb to be for everyone, meaning for every type of traveler. And we want to welcome a wide variety of hosts. And that is why we created categorization. So again, we could have shared rooms, private rooms, entire homes, boutiques, uniques, B&Bs, and vacation homes. That being said, I want to make it very, very clear that we still foresee the majority of our host community being regular hosts, renting the homes that they live in most of the time. That is where we started, and that is where the platform is going to continue to be. But we want to make sure we still have a variety for travelers. Now, as part of categorization, we want to be able to categorize homes so that a vacation home which is a dedicated rental, where somebody doesn't live in most of the time, is clear and discernible from an entire home, which is a home that somebody lives in most of the time. And so we want to make sure that guests can tell the difference. Maybe, Claire, do you want to come up and share a few more details? But that's the high-level spirit, and maybe, Claire, you can come up and just share a few more thoughts on this.
Absolutely. As Brian mentioned, what's really important to us is actually taking this feedback we've heard from all of our hosts and from our guests and making it really clear for setting expectations. There will be guests who would prefer not to see your wedding photos and your children's photos when they travel, and that's for them. And then there will be guests who that is what will be the magic, is hearing your stories about your wedding and your children's photos. And so being able to be clear on what we're presenting to guests and making sure their expectations are extraordinarily clear is important. Another example would be a private bedroom. Today, we make it very hard for a guest to understand if they're booking a private bedroom that happens to be in a boutique hotel. That's completely different than booking a bedroom that's in my home, where my family is. And so you'll see us starting to ask you additional questions about your space. Are you there? Is the space dedicated for guests? And the questions won't necessarily match exactly how we've described the 7 types of homes. This information we're asking you through the host dashboard and the host experience allows us to be able to present to our guests more information and be clear. So we've just started the very beginning with our categorization effort and collecting this information from you to be able to start this journey. We're going to create this process with you throughout the coming months and probably years as we continue to get better and better. As Brian mentioned, probably hundreds of categories that will end up, or attributes, will end up learning from you and from our guests to be able to help you find exactly the right guest that's going to appreciate everything that your home has to offer. And just a couple other highlights. Brian mentioned the social stays collection. This in particular is one that's so important to us. We're going to continue to expand on it. We're going to learn from you all the ways in which you like spending time with our guests and in which our guests like learning from you. It really makes that stay magical, personal, unique every single time. And then, of course, not to forget, behind all of this is the Superhost program that then allows all of us to recognize you for the great hospitality you provide, regardless of the type of listing you have. So a lot more to come in how we help set expectations, but we absolutely hear you on this feedback. We're committed to hosts who are hosting in their home, and it's really important that we continue to provide tools that support you in doing that. So thank you for being on this journey with us.
Thank you, Claire. And one of the things that I just wanted to call out again is many of the things that we launched last week, including collections, was feedback that we got from hosts. So if you feel like with everything we've launched or plan to launch, you still feel like your home isn't able to stand out, or there's something we should do, again, send it to airbnb.com/feedback. And we want to, we really want to listen to you to make sure, again, that everyone can discover your home and know what's so special about it.
I know that the last time I logged onto the app, I started being asked those kind of questions, and it's very straightforward to use and just sort of tick what applies to you. So that's great. Good to see that happening already. So on to the next question. This is a good one. I've been lucky enough that most of my guests have been super guests. How will we know if guests are super guests? Will we see any additional information about them?
Yeah, so later this year, we're going to be launching Super Guest. And Super Guest is the guest side of the Superhost program. It's going to work probably similarly. We're still figuring out the exact details, and we're bringing in guests to get their feedback, so I don't want to nail down all the details now. But we want to make sure that they will also have a badge. The badge that we showcased at the launch was meant to look like a passport. It's the idea that it's your passport to new travel lifestyle. The passport essentially is something that gives you access. And we want the whole point of the Super Guest program to be that it gets you access to all these new benefits and these really cool new opportunities. And so going forward, if you have a Super Guest staying with you, you will know because they will have a badge. Additionally, we're going to ask more information about the Super Guest so that we know more about them. Because one of the things we feel like is as trust goes up, access goes up. So we want to make sure that Super Guests, so they're getting more benefits and privileges, are also going to be sharing more information about who they are, so we have a little bit better sense of who they are. The only other thing that I want to mention here is this. We are instituting, and I didn't mention this keynote, but we are introducing up-leveled guest standards across the board. So one of the top things hosts have said to us, is that you care deeply about the quality of guests that stay in your home. And so if Airbnb asks standards of you, then it's only fair that we ask similarly reciprocal standards of our guest. And so we are instituting updated minimum guest standards. And then you can think of Superhost as the kind of next level, honoring our really great guests who've used us and participated in the community. And we will build all this on a baseline of knowing who our guests are. And as they become better guests, we want to make sure we have even more confidence about them, their history, their behavior, and how great guests they'll be.
Sounds great. I personally like the ones that leave me presents.
Oh, they leave
They're
you
very
presents?
popular, yeah.
What kind of presents?
I like the chocolate ones, actually. Yeah.
Chocolate presents, yes,
yeah,
yes.
That's it.
So note to self, if you're a guest staying in Airbnb, you leave a chocolate, it might improve your review.
Yes, absolutely. All beer. Okay.
Beer.
Okay, on to the next question. Airbnb is constantly pushing me to lower my price. Why?
So I think we talked a little bit about price last time. I think this was one of our top voted questions. First, I wanted to say the following. You as host are completely in control of your own price. And we want you to always be completely in control of your own price. We think you are the best person to be in control of it. We also think that we have a huge benefit from the hundreds of millions of data points to be able to help you. The guiding principle of our pricing is to make sure that hosts earn as much income as possible while still providing a really good value to guests. That's essentially what we're doing. I think that most of the times it works very well. We also want to acknowledge that we've gotten feedback. And the feedback is that some of the pricing rules don't take into account certain edge cases. And that really affects how much money you can make. So I want to maybe clarify, we can come up and give a few more details. I'm sorry? So Luca, I'm sorry. Luca, come down and give a few more details. Before you do, just the high level, again, principle is that we want these tools to be for you. You're in control of the price. And we really want this to help you become more successful. But we know we need to continue to evolve these tools to make them work better for you. So maybe, Luca, you can share a few more details on this.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So first of all, I want to reiterate what Brian said. We can't stress it enough. You are always in control of your own price. Whatever you get from us, price suggestions and campaigns are meant to be helpful, are intended to help you make the right trade-offs. And as Brian said, we prioritize helping to get you more income. And typically we do that pretty well. However, we also know that there are situations where it doesn't work super well and your prices appear to be, or the suggestions appear to be too low. Specifically, there are 3 situations in which that might happen. First of all, sometimes demand is really low. In those cases, our algorithms try to find the price that are going to get you booked. Now, sometimes this will be below what you're willing to host at. And that's why it's so important that we take the control of the minimum price in smart pricing, for example, so that the algorithms know never to go below that price. Another thing is more related to objectives. I used to be a Superhost hosting my then spare bedroom here in San Francisco. And I remember I was actually happy to have a few nights that didn't go booked sometimes so I could have the apartment to myself. Now, smart pricing would have probably tried to get me more money on those nights, but I was happy to take a risk and to price a little higher. Incorporating those types of objectives into our algorithms is something that we're getting better and better at, and we're continuing to prioritize. And the third situation, unfortunately, is also one of accuracy. So our algorithms get better and better every day, but they're still not 100% accurate. We're investing every day to make them more accurate. So 2 specific things we're doing to get better at giving you good suggestions are, number 1, we want to start incorporating your feedback more directly into our campaigns so that we can better target them and you only get the ones that are relevant to you. Secondly, we're actually going to start giving you more data rather than suggestions. So for example, you'll be able to see in the first half of this year how many people are searching for your listing, how many people are searching in your area, so that you can actually make an even more informed decision rather than just accepting or not accepting our suggestions.
Thank you, Luca.
Thanks.
All right.
Great stuff. So this is actually our last question. We're flying through them. Yeah,
right.
That's right. So what are you doing to help better manage guest expectations before they book my listing?
So great question. Not only have you hosts told us you care about the quality of guests, but it's very, very important they have the right expectations. For example, I've heard from many, many hosts that have said that it's really important that guests understand when they come into my home, they understand it's not a hotel. And the way you act in a hotel and the way you act in a home are different. Now, that's a very high-level principle. It may actually turn out that the way you act in a treehouse should be different than the way you act in a boat. It's different than the way you act in a bedroom, which is different than the way you act if you're sleeping in the living room of a studio or if you have your own bungalow. And so each of these home types has very nuanced behaviors and expectations. And so if we have 4.5 million listings, the expectations get really granular. If you're living in a apartment in London, the expectations are probably different than a bungalow in Venice, California, which is different than a treehouse in Burlingame. And so one of the things we want to do is attach categorization, knowing exactly the type of home you are, what makes your home special, with also what are the unique expectations about your home. Is it a particularly quiet neighborhood? Are there a lot of neighbors? Is there is it very remote? Is it so every type of home is going to have very specific expectations. And so part of launching categories are matching guests to your home, understanding what's special about it, but also what is unique about the house rules and the expectations. And so we're going to do a lot more around guest expectations to make sure that everyone's matched. I also think that the better job we do matching, the better expectations are already aligned. If somebody is looking for a home that no one lives in and they just really want space themselves, then they're going to have better expectations. If somebody wants to have a local experience with a host, hang out with the host, get to know them, and we match them to that right kind of host, those expectations will be matched. Historically, people sometimes book an Airbnb. They expect the host to be there. They expect to have a very local experience. And if the host is not there, they couldn't tell by the listing the host wasn't going to greet them. And therefore, they become disappointed. Or vice versa. The host is there, but they were expecting to have a space by themselves. And so I think really matching guest expectations is consistent with where we're going with categories. This will take a little bit of time to get to where we need to go. And again, I think part of it is just being precise about filling out the category information, continue to fill out the house rules, and we'll continue to work as best we can on making sure that guests read the information, and with the elevated guest standards, if they're not honoring those, we'll have a better process.
Sounds great. I think that will help everybody have a better experience all round. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you. The time has flown by, but I believe we still have a few minutes left if there's anything you'd like to add and share with all the millions of hosts out there.
Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for doing this. I am incredibly excited about these. First thing I want to say is this. If you have feedback about this, send it to airbnb.com/feedback. If you have feedback on the format, we're still iterating these. So every 3 months, we'll kind of update the format. We'll do these so long as they're useful, and we always want to do them if they're useful to you. We got 3,000 questions and 31,000 upvotes. So I know we answered about a dozen questions, but we didn't answer like 2,988 of them. So there were some duplication, but we want to get to a place where we can get to answering more of these. Know that our team reviewed all 3,000. If we see a lot of upvotes or something, if we saw a question asked, even if I didn't answer it, the team noticed it. And the team is going to work on collecting this feedback. Hopefully, you will see each 3 months that some of the things you asked about get addressed before the next Q&A. Sometimes, like pricing came up twice in a row, it will take a few times for us to really get this done. This format's a really good accountability for me because I don't want to have to keep answering the same question. So it's good motivation to try to get to fix some of the root issues. But I really appreciate your patience and your understanding. Look for updates in a monthly host news email. So we're going to be sending a monthly email called Host News. We want to make sure there's a lot of feedback. If you have feedback, not just in this format, but if you have feedback on the product, if you say, hey, I have an idea for a new collection, or you say, hey, my home is incredibly interesting and it's on movie locations, but there's no way to highlight movie locations, let us know. We're only as good as the ideas that get shared with us. And all this comes back to this broader idea that you, the host, and we, the company, are in a partnership together. I want to remind everyone by saying that before I was a CEO, I was a host. That is actually true. I was the first host with Joe on Airbnb, and so before I was running a company and a CEO, I was a host. We are and always will be host in our core, and this partnership is so critical. If I was at Apple, the product we are offering is a device. At Airbnb, the product we're offering is this incredibly kind-hearted community, and that community is all of you. And I want to thank you for your partnership and your commitment. And I am so excited about the journey that we have over the next few years, and we'll see you for the next Q&A in a few months. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.